On September 18th, 2012, a 999 call rang out to the Greater Manchester Police to report a burglary in Tameside, Greater Manchester, England. Two unarmed officers, Nicola Hughes and Fiona responded to the call. But little did they know that Dale Cregan, a career criminal who had already killed two people, was waiting in the bushes. What he did next would send a shockwave throughout the United Kingdom. Welcome to History's Biggest Villains. Dale Cregan was born in Tameside General Hospital on June 6, 1983 to Paul Cregan, a tool setter from Manchester, and Anita Cregan. Cregan attended the Little Moss High School in Greater Manchester, where he began selling weed and developed a fetish for knives. This stemmed from his obsession with hunting and skinning rabbits in his youth. Cregan began collecting firearms until he possessed around 10 guns, including machine pistols. At age 16, he dropped out of school and dove into a life of crime. At age 19, he was running a fake timeshare racket, persuading elderly people to invest thousands of pounds into his non-existent timeshare. By the age of 22, Cregan had begun using and dealing cocaine, claiming 20,000 pounds a week in profits, but always listing his job as a plasterer. Cregan was known as One Eye due to his missing left eye, which was believed to have been carved out with a knife. He has told friends it was the result of a bar fight in Thailand. The Short family was well entrenched in organized crime in the area, headed by criminal David Short. The Shorts were in a turf war with the Atkinsons, another crime family. On May 13, 2012, after Manchester City beat Manchester United to win the Premier League, tempers flared in the pub that the two families were in. Cregan, who was close to the Atkinsons, wanted to get rid of David Short on their behalf. On May 25, 2012, Dale and three other accomplices showed up to the Cotton Tree pub in Droylsden. Dale, armed with a 9mm Glock and wearing a balaclava, ran into the pub and approached David's son Mark while he was playing pool. In less than 30 seconds, he fired 7 shots, hitting Mark 3 times in the chest and wounding 3 other men. David Short was in the bathroom during the shooting and came out to find his son dead. Cregan, realizing the repercussions of killing the son of a gang leader, knew that he was in a sticky situation. Although David knew Cregan was responsible for his son's death, he remained loyal to the criminal code and wouldn't speak to the police. Cregan fled to Thailand until the dust settled around his name. When he arrived back in Manchester on June 12th, he was arrested, but there wasn't enough evidence to keep him behind bars. On August 7th, the police had gathered enough evidence to arrest him again, but he was missing. He had fled north to Bournemouth after hearing about the arrest of his accomplices. This is where he planned to finish what he had started and get rid of David Short once and for all. Cregan began to stalk David's movements, noticing that he visited his son Mark's grave every day, and Cregan took this as his opportunity. On August 10, 2012, he and another criminal, Anthony Wilkinson, waited at the graveyard for David to return. However, David didn't show up this day, so a different accomplice drove them to David's house, where they waited there for him. They saw David transferring items from his house to his car for a family barbecue. As he left his front door open, Dale and Anthony ran and chased David, shooting him multiple times. After they had him helplessly backed into a corner in the alleyway, Cregan shot him 3 times in the head at point-blank range. But that wasn't enough. He pulled a grenade out of his pocket and threw it onto David's lifeless body. This would be the first use of a grenade in a murder in Britain. After killing David, Cregan and his associates drove to the house of another rival family where Dale threw another grenade at their house. Then he used a 3rd grenade to blow up the rental van they used to drive to David's house. During their getaway, the 3 criminals stopped to buy ice cream. Because killing people makes you really hungry. The explosions had ruptured a gas line in the area, causing some residents to have to evacuate. The police launched Operation Dakar in order to bring Cregan to justice. He had become the most wanted person in the Greater Manchester area, and the police poured a lot of resources into his investigation. They found Dale's fingerprints in a partially destroyed van and his DNA on the ice cream wrapper that he left on the ground near the vehicle. Dale and Anthony had fled 250 miles south to Herne Bay, Kent during this time. A £50,000 reward was offered for the capture of the 2 criminals, and Anthony eventually gave himself up. But now Cregan had a £50,000 reward looming over him. However, those that knew him were too afraid to give him up. The police began to conduct surveillance on Cregan's family and close criminal partners. And now that he knew that the walls were closing in on him, Dale Cregan hatched a plan to go down in infamy. On September 17th, 2012, Dale broke into the house of a barber he knew and threatened him, placing a grenade on the table. Dale held him hostage and forced him to trim up his hair and beard so he would look presentable for his mugshot. Okay. Cregan had begun to binge on beer and cigarettes since he knew that this was going to be his last night of freedom. The next morning, Cregan loaded his Glock with a 32-round magazine, almost double the usual 17-round magazine. On that day, officers Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes had begun their morning shifts. 32-year-old Fiona was planning for a civil partnership. Her and her fiancé had a 5-year-old daughter. Nicola Hughes, who was 23, was relatively new to her job as a police constable, this being only her 3rd year on the force. At 10:14 a.m., Cregan called 999, claiming that someone threw a concrete block through his window and ran off. His last words to end the call were, "Thanks very much, I'll be waiting." Now that he knew the police were on their way, he hid in the bushes, waiting for them to arrive. Almost 40 minutes later, which is really suspect, Nicola and Fiona, both unarmed, arrived at the door. As they approached, Cregan flung open the door and started firing, emptying his 32-round magazine. Fiona, although she had been shot at least 5 times, reached for her taser, but Cregan shot her in the heart, killing her. Nicola was unable to move after a bullet severed her spinal cord. Despite this, Cregan shot her 3 more times in the head at point-blank range. Again, as if he didn't do enough damage, he pulled out a grenade from his pocket and threw it on the 2 women. Nicola was pronounced dead later on in the hospital. Dale went to the police station and turned himself in. He said that he had done 2 cops because the police were hounding his family while he was on the run. Cregan stated that his only regret was that he killed 2 women. The deaths of Hughes and Bone were met with shock and condemnation in the United Kingdom and other countries. The following day, a moment of silence was held by all of Greater Manchester Police at 11 a.m. in remembrance of the officers, and the Union flag at the force's headquarters was lowered to fly at half-mast. David Cameron, who was the Prime Minister at the time, described the attack as a shocking reminder of the debt we owe to those who put themselves in danger to keep us safe and secure. Manchester City Football Club lowered the flags outside their stadium to half-mast and sent flowers of condolence to nearby Tamside. They and the team they played against wore black armbands for 1 match and had a minute of silence. The Manchester United Football Club players wore black armbands in their match on September 19th of 2012. Then manager Sir Alex Ferguson attended the funerals and said in a statement that the club was deeply saddened by the tragic loss of 2 young policemen protecting our community. The deaths briefly renewed the debate about whether British police officers should be armed. The funeral services of Hughes and Bone were held at Manchester Cathedral on consecutive days. The service for Hughes was held on Wednesday, October 3rd, with the service broadcast to the outside crowds on a screen with an audio feed. The service for Bone was held on Thursday, October 4th, with, at the request of her family, only an audio feed available for the crowds outside the cathedral. The trial for Cregan began on February 4th, 2013 at Preston Crown Court, where he stood with 9 co-defendants charged with murder and attempted murder. Armed security surrounded the courtroom and officers were even placed on the rooftops. Cregan had earlier pleaded not guilty to the murders of Hughes and Bone, and the murders of Mark Short and David Short. Cregan, however, changed his plea to guilty for the murders of the 2 officers on February 12, 2013, and pleaded guilty on May 22nd to the murders of David and Mark Short. On June 13, 2013, he was sentenced to life imprisonment for the 4 murders, with a whole life order. In August, it was reported that Cregan was on a hunger strike at HM Prison Full Sutton. He was moved to Ashworth Hospital near Liverpool in September. He was transferred back to Manchester in March 2018 from Ashworth, where it was reported that he had boasted about his workout regimen and his access to pool and tennis. Ooh, sweet. Personally, for me, I feel like this whole situation is just so sad because I feel like Dale knew that those cops were not going to be armed, and that he just wanted to kill police officers. Like I really don't know what really was it was somebody who wanted to be a criminal, someone who wanted to be known for doing bad things, I guess. And I guess he's known in infamy, but I mean, I regret that they weren't. I regret that I killed 2 women. If you didn't want to kill women, you had multiple opportunities to not kill women. He emptied the 32 round magazine. You made 32 choices to keep pulling that trigger. And you made a choice to pull the grenade out. So I don't really see what he's talking about. Like, he's behind bars where he should be, and one of the most crazy stories I've ever seen. Because it's like, how do you get access to a grenade? Like, who? That was my biggest thing when I was doing my research. Like, how do you have access to a grenade? Like, where are you buying grenades from? That's a bigger story. That's the story of Dale Cregan. But thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for everyone who supports this channel. But please be safe, stay on the grind, have a great day. I'm out. Peace.